Hello and welcome back to our afternoon sessions. I hope you all had a nice lunch. This live interactive workshop is sponsored by our partner, Manhattan Associates. And the topic and focus of this workshop is going to be the science behind fulfillment. And again, like I say on every session, please participate in our polls, post your comments, post your questions, and Georgia would be delighted to get back to you later in the session. You can, of course, also follow us on social media, on our LinkedIn and on our Twitter feeds at #Deliver2020. So I'm now delighted to introduce our speaker, who I mentioned on our virtual stage. She is Georgia Laybourne, who is the Senior Director of International Marketing at Manhattan Associates. Welcome, Georgia. Good to have you here. And I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Claire. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Science Workshop. Our aim in the next 45 minutes is to bring to life the science behind fulfillment from the perspective of the warehouse, the store, and the road. The terms machine learning and artificial intelligence are used prolifically in today's noisy technology world, and it's very difficult to know sometimes where they sit, what exactly they're doing, and how they impact the processes and operations that you guys are orchestrating. So hopefully today's session will dispel some of that mystery and answer some of those questions. Now, I'm Georgia Laybourne, as Clea mentioned. I'm in the marketing team here at Manhattan Associates. I've been with the company for about 8 years, but I've spent the last 20 working in the world of technology, supporting retail, manufacturing, and wholesale in some way, shape, or form. With me today is my colleague, Alex McPherson, our Director of Solution Consulting, a 15-year veteran in Manhattan, who has worked with many of our customers to bring true value to the deployment of their supply chain and commerce technology. He's going to be supporting me a little bit later when you start to ask all those complicated questions that you're going to save up until the end. So Alex, do you just want to say hi to everyone?
Hi, thanks for the introduction, Georgia. Great to be here and looking forward to some good discussion later on.
Thanks, Alex. Now, the star of today's show is definitely Icon Ak, who couldn't be with us because he has been called into one of our customers to help with a workshop. So he's not here in person, but you're going to be hearing from him in a number of pre-recorded deep dive videos where he's going to be literally diving right into the science. Icon is a supply chain optimization specialist, and he's focused on the application of machine learning and optimization techniques to solve problems that arise in supply chains. And he's spent about 12 years leading the design and development of Manhattan's optimization engines, which are embedded in some of the technology that I know you guys are interested in. So today, our session is going to look at things from your perspective as the retailer, the manufacturer, the wholesaler, the logistics company. We are going to explore the wheels that are set in motion by our customers' behaviors and how best you can respond whilst keeping an eye on how to keep it personal for the customer, but also to ensure maximum efficiency and effectiveness for you and your business, particularly protecting your margins. Now, before we get into the detail, I am going to run a little poll just to make sure everyone's paying attention. And for this question and for this question alone, I'd just like you to put your professional hat to one side and put on your consumer hat. I talked about making it personal for you as a consumer, and that's because the better the service you guys offer as organizations, the more loyal our customers will become. So let's start with the concept of coffee. Now, I believe the poll should come up on your portal. And what I'd like to know is who has consumed a beverage from one of the following brands: Starbucks, Nespresso, McDonald's, or Kenco, either today, this week, this year, or never. So if you guys can take a few moments to answer on the poll, we'll come back to the responses to that in a few moments' time. Now back to business. We're going to hone in on the initial order orchestration and the decision as to where it is best to fulfill for your business. And then we're going to go to the warehouse, go to the store, go out on the road and examine exactly what's happening at each node in your network from a machine learning and science perspective as that order passes through your supply chain. Now, our first port of call is to explore the typical journey of an order when a customer shops online. Before the customer even pushes that buy button, there is already a considerable amount at play. You've got a front end of some sort, be that a web store or a digital marketplace, on which the customer is making their choices. Now, this in itself involves a lot of science with how they land on the website in the first place, how they navigate around the website, how they end up landing on the product they desire. Machine learning driven prediction engines are used behind those websites to extract patterns from customer behavior, which items they look at, what they're adding to their cart, comparisons they're making. And at this stage, fulfillment considerations should already be in flight, with only those items available for sale surfaced on the website and preferred fulfillment options on display, dependent on the location of the visitor. The real hustle, however, begins when the customer pushes that buy button and checks out, namely when the cart is converted into an e-commerce order. And this is the moment at which a promise has been made to your customer. They are now expecting delivery or collection at a specified date, time, and location. Now you have to deliver. So let me hand over to Icon, who is going to talk you through the wheels that that customer has just set in motion.
The retailer in this instance has just entered into a contract with the end customer. It is at this moment that the customer is promised a service, which commits a set of products at a specific location by a specific date and time. That contract is the service level agreement between the shipper and the customer. Service level is the promise on what to deliver, the correct product, not a different size or color, where to deliver, and when. The biggest component of the service level is the when part, because the other two are always assumed to be guaranteed. If not, then the shipper is in big trouble. We can say that the customers care about only the when part once an order is placed. They don't care about where this item is shipped from and the actual cost the shipper incurs. Smart supply chain systems must work around these constraints defined by the service level promised. The first action is taken by the order management system. Manhattan Order Management and the underlying Available to Commerce, or ATC, engine first do a pre-check of inventory availability. It's not only the quantity, but it's where and when this inventory is available as well. And we do it before checkout. After checkout, ATC ensures that there is at least one way of fulfillment, Order management's adaptive network fulfillment, or ANF, engine's job is to find the best source location considering the current state of the network among the available found by ATC. After the source location is determined by ANF optimization, WMS and TMS, warehouse management solutions and transportation management solutions, work together to ship the order to the customer on time. TMS comes up with the best transportation plan for the order, considering order constraints as well as synergies between other orders. Zone skipping and mode shopping are possible considerations on top of a standard parcel shipment planning. The delivery end time promised plays an important role in determining the lowest cost feasible transportation plan. SLA and the resulting transportation plan impact how WMS treats orders. In summary, the WMS is responsible for the allocation of individual items in the inventory available at the warehouse to each individual order line and preparing the final package ready to ship on time. Of course, a typical warehouse receives many orders during the day, not just the order of that specific customer. So it is WMS's responsibility to decide which order to process first. So the selection of the right order to process next and generating the best picking and packing plan are the responsibilities of the WMS. The WMS is done with the order once it's out of the warehouse, whilst the TMS continues to track the shipment that carry the order and can notify the Omni solution or order management solution and eventually the customer on where the order is.
Oh boy, that was pretty intense. So thank you very much for bearing with me there. You've got to admit that this concept of science, machine learning, AI, it's a pretty technical one. So let's have just a little bit of a light moment. And let's look at these results that Clea has just sent through to me. Now, to be frank, the reason I went with coffee as my poll was I wanted to make sure you guys were all awake and you'd had a cup of coffee after lunch, because I don't want any snoozing. But the interesting thing is that 99% of the people on this call have consumed from one of these brands. And the reason why that was important to me is because this is a sample of Manhattan's customer base. And what that means is that pretty much everybody involved in today's science workshop has been impacted by the science within Manhattan's technology, because the coffee that you drink from Starbucks, from Nespresso, from McDonald's has been fulfilled using Manhattan solutions. So I thought that was a fun fact to share with you. So now that I know you're all awake, let's break down what ICANN has just shared with us. There were several data-rich elements at play in that scenario that were all working simultaneously. Now, he mentioned available to commerce, ATC. This is an engine that's looking across your network to assess what inventory you have that is available for sale regardless of its location. In general parlance, this is also known in the industry as available to promise. After all, you can only sell that which you can see. This is one of the reasons it's so critical to get things like returns back into circulation into your network quickly, so you can resell those items and realize the revenue from them. Now, the second data element he mentioned, the second engine he mentioned, was ANF, something that we call adaptive network fulfillment. This engine is identifying where in your network that inventory is available, and then working out the most optimum way to get it from that location to the customer, whilst taking into consideration 7 different very important variables. Things like shipping costs based on size, weight, distance, handling costs, fixed and variable based on location, selling price dependent on whether it's in-store, online, marked down, full price, inventory age, selling volume by location, safety stock considerations, capacity based on staffing, weather, backlog of orders, previous historical performance based on activity and rejection rates, and also proximity between the source and the destination. And all of this, guys, is being juggled in the blink of an eye in the ANF engine, which then proposes the best course of action. And that's just one order. There's probably hundreds at play simultaneously. So once the order has gone through the ATC and the ANF engines, as I say, in the blink of an eye, thereafter a decision is going to be made as to where we will fulfill from. And the order is then allocated to a combination of the warehouse, store, and/or transportation as per the decision that has been made. We'll come back to that a little bit later. Now, before I turn back to ICANN to talk us through the learning supply chain and the magic of AI, let's just very, very quickly take another poll. For my purposes, sitting here in my home in leafy Farnham in Surrey, I'd love to get a handle on who I've got in the audience. So personally, I'm in marketing. ICANN is a scientist. Alex has spent 20 years keeping supply chains running. What's your discipline? So have a look at these options and tell me which function best matches your background and overall area of expertise. really high categorization here, guys. So I hope you can find one that suits your role to the best. Okay, moving swiftly on, let's go back to Ikan, who is going to share with us why artificial intelligence driven supply chains are so vital in this era of rapid disruption in the supply chain. So back over to Ikan.
Artificial intelligence means automatic decision making. Most of the time, it is explained as mimicking the human behavior, but I think it's a little more than that. Decisions made by systems powered by artificial intelligence are expected to be optimal with respect to the input, namely the objectives and the constraints of the current state. What I think is really expected from supply chain management systems driven by AI is to self-adjust the plan based on the rapid changes in the ecosystem. COVID-19 is an unfortunate example of such a rapid disruption to supply chain ecosystems. We hear from many of our customers and prospects that their e-com order volumes doubled, tripled, or even quadrupled overnight. And they had their inventory stuck at their stores, which received literally zero traffic due to lockdowns and restrictions imposed by local governments. Most of them experienced firsthand that systems driven by rigid rules and flows fail to cope with such immediate changes. The value of smart and flexible systems became obvious. Building a smart system driven by AI to cope with such disruptions requires machine learning capabilities. In other words, learning from history, but also the ability to detect real-time changes by proper data collection and responding to these changes using sophisticated optimization algorithms. Such systems can make different decisions for the same order or a set of orders throughout a typical day based on the changes in the state.
So it's very clear that everybody in today's modern world is moving at speed, but none more so than the volume and flight of orders that move through an e-commerce supply chain, with parameters changing and evolving all the time. Any modern day supply chain relies on a decision-making engine of some sort to help them efficiently juggle daily throughput. Today, an Excel spreadsheet, legacy technology, or the back of a cigarette packet, as we often say here in Great Britain, this will simply not enable an e-commerce player to remain competitive. As a practical example, let's look at the applications of machine learning and optimization in Manhattan's WMS store and transportation solution, and the three primary questions that they are resolving at speed and many times over, regardless of whether it's in the warehouse, the store, or on the road. These are the three critical questions that machine needs to help us resolve. So the first is, and we've already touched on it, where is it best to fulfill from in your network? Is it the warehouse or is it the store? Whereabouts is it geographically? And is it all of the lines of an order or is it just some of the lines? And this needs to be considered for every order and every order line all the time. So as I say, you can kind of imagine the numbers just keep growing and growing. Each order that comes in, there are more decisions that need to be made about where best to fulfill from. The other challenge that we've got to resolve on the fly is which set of orders should be processed next. Right up to the last minute processing power is needed because at any moment, another order might come in. And that order might take priority. It might be that you're juggling store replenishment needs with bulk wholesale fulfillment needs, with e-commerce needs, and then you might have a VIP customer order come in, and then you might be told about out of stock in a critical location. you've got to know which orders take priority, and you need an engine to help you make that decision. And then the third question is around transportation. What is the optimal transportation routing to enable the successful movement of goods and thus the orders? And all of this depends on capacity, whether or not you've got your own fleet, whether you work with a 3PL, whether you work with carriers, whether you support half loads or are, trying to do full loads, whether you've managed your return loads. And each one of these is all based on evolving criteria, configurable in the engines and totally aligned with your business requirements. Now we're going to move next into specifics within the warehouse and the science buried within, but let's take a quick look at those results. Have those come through yet, Clear, or should we come back to that a little bit later?
Yes, I think we'll need to come back to that a little bit later, Georgia, so work away.
Yeah, I'm absolutely determined to find out who's in the audience, because at the moment you could all be, part of the marketing organization and actually not interested in science at all. So I'll wait to learn more about that a bit later. Okay, let's going. We're going to take a look in the warehouse and consider what science is at play in the four walls of the DC. So back over to Icahn to shed some light. Pardon the pun.
A warehouse, or a distribution center to be more accurate within the context, is not much different than a production or assembly plant. Raw materials or parts are received from one end, which are commodities in bulk quantities, and the final products go out from the other end. The final product for a DC is individual shipments. It can be cartons, pallets, or trailers. They're assembled in the warehouse with specific parts, which are the items ordered. Therefore, typical concerns of a modern assembly plant are also valid for a DC, like replenishing parts into the assembly line on time, balancing the assembly line, and job shop scheduling. For a DC, these can be translated as making sure that items are ready to be picked at the locations that workers or automatic retrieval systems are diverted to. It can be translated as balancing the work across different resources, both vertically, like downstream and upstream resources, and horizontally, like alternative resources, with the same function of replenishment, picking, packing, and staging. It also translates as the ability to queue orders or schedule orders to process and release the right order with the right execution plan, which means the right pick and pack tasks. I would like to mention that MHEs, material handling equipments, are important factors in achieving automation in warehouses. But smart WMS, like Manhattan Active WMS, can achieve a good level of automation without MHE as well, or with a blend of MHE and other manual systems. At the end of the day, MHE is expected to operate at 100%. So the investment is made considering that fact. Rapid demand increases require rapid resource additions to the system, but your big expensive sorter is already utilized 100% in normal times. So in such cases, you should be able to set up a number of good old put walls, for example, in the warehouse quickly and define them in WMS easily. A smart WMS should be able to detect that additional resource immediately and expand throughput capacity automatically. A rapid demand decrease also may cause similar disruptions and may require WMS to take changes in resource setup into account, like slowing down sorter or turning a set of chutes off immediately. Manhattan Active WMS does exactly that. It is equipped with two levels of science, hidden and visible. Hidden science involves things that run in the background, like the constant distance calculation between item locations and resource locations using the digital layout concept. Or collection of big data as a result of ongoing operations, scans, shoot status, sorter congestion. This big data is stored in proper databases to process real-time feedback into operations and power machine learning engines. The more visible science involves the prescriptive engines that make real-time decisions. Work release engine, for example, constantly runs and plans tasks for the order pool. It ensures that the top picking efficiency is considered by creating draft tasks, which takes pick cards or tote setup along with other picking policies and constraints into account. This draft plan is only available in the system. It's not visible to workers or MHE until released. So it can be changed anytime. Duration of each pick task in this draft plan is estimated using machine learning algorithms, and release of correct tasks are decided based on a mathematical model-driven task release engine. Priority of orders, status of each individual resource, and eligibility of each order to each resource is considered in that release process. Orders not released continue to churn in the continuous task planning engine as the order pool and priorities change every minute. Even the assignment of tasks to individual workers are optimized based on the current location of workers or picking equipment to minimize unproductive travel and maximize throughput. From that perspective, Manhattan Active WMS is a big AI engine which constantly optimizes the flow of materials, whether the warehouse itself is equipped with sophisticated MHE or not.
The mind boggles, doesn't it, as you consider the sheer quantity of variables that need to be assessed in order to manage that workflow in a modern DC. I've put a diagram up in the presentation to help sort of show the just sheer number of things happening. You know, the balance between man and machine and the interplay between them is a critical factor in any modern day warehouse. And at least 20% of you are definitely interested in technology in the warehouse. So hopefully you found that some valuable insight there from ICON on the science behind the scenes. It's interesting that where traditionally systems running machine and man were totally separate, today with warehouse execution built right inside the warehouse management system, the interoperability is actually seamless, and the science can thus decide when to deploy man and when to deploy machine. And even better, these processes can actually work simultaneously. So a warehouse environment today with this type of technology can process a high volume wave whilst simultaneously running continuous and frequent waveless operations to ensure that the agility and speed that you need for e-commerce fulfillment is front and center. We call that order streaming at Manhattan Associates, and it's our way of helping you fulfill customer expectation, adapt on the fly, and get things like your returns back into the network and out for fulfillment as quickly as possible. Now, one of the things that I was blown away by when I looked into our latest WMS in a bit more detail was the ability to significantly reduce travel time in a DC, and all because the science is computing what, where, and when. And I remember way back in my university days working in a warehouse, and you know, the amount of time you thunder up and down those aisles. And don't get me started on proximity alerting, which has obviously come about as a result of social distancing. This is the latest consideration that warehouses have to take into consideration. So a system that helps them preserve that 2-meter distance at all times as they deploy their staff around the warehouse is pretty potent, and obviously will protect your staff. So I did get the results from the last poll, and we do have a very, very split audience, actually. It does look as though, at least half of you are in sort of transportation, warehouse, IT, the other half focused on retail and omni. But again, all very relevant because we're talking about fulfillment, and that does cross over between supply chain and commerce. So thanks very much for joining us. Now, I do just want to run another very quick poll just to make sure your fingers are still working. So have a look at this question that's up in the portal. What is the next fulfillment option that you wish to support in your business? So just pick the one that's the most top of mind at the moment. Now, the role of the warehouse is pretty obvious in fulfillment because that's what they were designed for. They're big buildings, and there's only so many that you can build across the network. Recent changes in customer requirements have definitely resulted in a big need to be closer to the customer physically. So the role of the store has changed. So I want to move to the store now and take a look at what happens if it's the store that has been selected by that ANF engine to fulfill from. So quickly back to Icon for a couple of minutes, who's going to talk about the role of the store and how you can potentially maximize their utilization in fulfillment.
Especially during COVID-19 restrictions, we see that demand for many stores dropped to zero for quite long time periods. Especially in the apparel industry, this meant seasonal products being stuck at many locations within the city. Inventory is close to customers, but customers could not get it. Most of these retailers try to utilize that inventory from stores to fulfill e-com orders, which may be something that they always thought of, but never get prepared for. One important decision, which is not quite easy, is which store to fulfill an order from. Manhattan Active Omni provides a perfect solution to that. ANF, Adaptive Network Fulfillment, that we covered earlier. ANF is an optimization engine, which optimizes the decision of where to fulfill orders based on the inventory availability and many other factors. When a customer submits an order, ANF first consults to ATC to see the candidate source locations for each item requested. That information is then fed to an optimization engine, which selects the best source location for each item to avoid splitting of the order, if possible, and minimize the overall cost of fulfillment. ANF considers up to 7 cost factors while making the decision, all configurable dependent on your business needs, and once the policy is set up, the system starts to orchestrate orders across the network, adapting to the previous decisions made and other changes in the system, like shipping performance of stores, available workforce capacity, and so on.
So it's worth mentioning here that when we consider the store as part of the fulfillment process, a compatible store system will definitely assist in helping to process those online orders. In general, stores have been designed to ship for store associates to be able to serve walk-in customers. They haven't been designed to allow shipping and collection of goods. Hence, the proper technologies that would notify and help with the preparation of such online orders is really, really essential. Now, it's interesting to look at the polling results that have just come through, because where a very large percentage of you are all looking definitely at pick up from store and ship from store, and indeed many of you already do that, very few of you are looking at curbside pickup, which really came to the fore during the pandemic, when stores were closed and people couldn't actually get into the store themselves. And it's also very interesting to look at the speed responses. So 42% of you are looking to do same day and next day. And I still see in polls that are run out there in the industry that although some customers are clamoring for speed, the majority do appear to be clamoring for the reliability of actually getting the goods when you say the goods are going to be getting to them. So it's interesting to balance the different fulfillment things that we can do as retailers, as manufacturers, to get the goods to customers when they see fit. I mentioned curbside pickup, and the pandemic really has escalated the pressure on operations to really use their stores as part of that fulfillment piece. And we've had a multitude of retailers spin up curbside delivery or pickup in the parking lot. The type of operation that grocery have had going for quite some time with click and collect is now being adopted by fashion retail, DIY retailers, and also sportswear. But using the store is definitely a balancing act between cost and convenience. But with science helping you assess the variable levers, it's possible to put the store to work as a viable node in your supplier chain. Now, talking about nodes, our final stop today is out on the road and a look at the importance of transportation. At the end of the day, goods need to be transported from origin to customer location, which requires some level of planning. So final video of the day, just a couple more minutes with Ican, who's going to dive into the science for us from a transportation optimization perspective.
TMS systems are responsible for making the decision as to how goods will be transported from origin to the customer location. Manhattan TMS is equipped with sophisticated optimization engines to tackle two main transportation problems. The first problem is the execution level shipment planning problem. Shipment planning engine embedded in TMS can continuously optimize the shipment until orders are shipped. That optimization involves mode selection, groupage creation, LTL, less than truckload or full truckload load building, and resource, which means carrier and service level selection. Once orders are shipped, it also provides excessive tracking features that may help customer in their e-com journey and sophisticated accounting features that help shippers to keep costs under control. The second topic in transportation management is the strategic and tactical planning. Manhattan TMS is equipped with a powerful modeling solution which helps the shipper to optimize transportation policies, which enables proper configuration of the execution engines as well. DC and hub locations, cross-dock path determination, carrier selection, and territory planning are all subjects to transportation policy determination. Manhattan's transportation modeler comes with a sophisticated scenario management framework, built-in policy optimizers, and the simulation engine. It provides a digital replica of the supply chain network and a nice and safe playground to test alternative transportation policies.
I so wish Ican could have actually been here with us live today, and I know he really wanted to be live. He has such a great way of explaining these things that is so comprehensive. But a big thank you from me to Ican, which I shall send to him virtually. Now, just touching very quickly on the transportation side of things to finish off, this is an area that's ripe for optimization and indeed sustainability improvements. Using a sophisticated transportation management system, simulations can be run using all manner of variable data to enable you to assess different scenarios and make the right decisions in real time. And using real-time data, you can model your business and drive improvements in routing, capacity planning, full load utilization, and also transparent communications within your enterprise, across your network, and with your drivers. This helps your customers, it helps the environment, it helps you. It's a win-win-win. Now, before I wrap, I just wanted to set a level playing field. It may well be that there are some people in the workshop who have never heard of Manhattan Associates. So please just allow me a moment to share the name of the organization with you. We're 30 years old this year. We offer solutions across the supply chain. Our technology is versionless, auto-scalable, and highly adaptive to change. We operate across the globe with 3,500 associates ready to support your business and 1,200 customers. And a quick fun fact, guys, I ran a poll earlier about coffee, but I'm pretty certain had I extended that poll to include what you're wearing, what you've eaten, what transportation you've used, where you've shopped today, that everyone on the call will have consumed, worn, or utilized something fulfilled by Manhattan's technology. And thus you've already experienced the science that we've been discussing. So that brings us to the end of the workshop. We've traversed the warehouse, the store, and the road in exploration of the decision-making engines that enable optimization in fulfillment. The sheer number of variables and the multidimensional considerations require sophisticated AI-enabled technology to drive forward a process that works for your business, but that will ultimately satisfy your customers. So between me and Alex, who is on the call, we're more than happy to take questions. And I believe the team at Deliver are serving up a call to action for you. We've done a paper on the learning supply chain, so you can read more about what we've discussed today in that resource.
So sure, Georgia, we have a couple of questions to put to you and Alex. So we have a question from Martin. What is the best WMS in your opinion? And a second question from Robert, which looks to be related. So the best WMS, he makes the point, is always the homegrown option if you can plan your business like that. Otherwise, you are pretty much at the mercy of the vendor to configure the vanilla solution the way that is optimal to you.
Goodness me, Alex, these guys
Yeah,
need
let me take that one, Georgia. Some good questions there, some great questions. So it's interesting when traditionally when people have deployed WMS solutions, that they'll effectively run with those for 3 or 5 years before an upgrade. So effectively, when the vendor is bringing any innovation, new capabilities out, effectively that customer is locked out of them until they upgrade, which is a challenge. And often people feel, well, with a homegrown solution, I've got more access to innovation, I can bring that into my operation more quickly, which is definitely a challenge. Now, with our new solution, Manhattan Active WM, that is always current. So the solution, as a true SaaS solution that's been architected that way, it is updated with new capability every 3 months. So customers don't need to wait to access that. The other aspect to that is the amount of innovation that we bring to the product. So actually in developing our new solution, it's actually 1,000 man years of R&D investment have gone into that product. Now that's pretty difficult to replicate as a homegrown solution, but also in terms of what capabilities you bring. You know what you know, but actually with over 1,200 customers, we're getting all the innovation that they bring to us as well. So through our product councils, where all our customers get to interact, we allocate about 25% of all our R&D expenditure to ideas that have filtered up from that user group. So a lot more innovation is brought to the base product, but also a lot more quickly as well. So hopefully that answers that in terms of how we measure that against being a homegrown solution and what is the best WMS out there.
Great, Alex. Thank you for that. Georgia, just to come back to you, is there any final thoughts or wrap up you'd like to share with the audience, particularly around next steps and how they move forward?
Yeah, so thanks, Clea. To be quite honest with you guys, this is a difficult forum. We're virtual. I can't see you. I can't see your reactions. Manhattan's a very, very open organization. We're very keen to explore what your needs are, what your challenges are, and how we can help you solve those problems. Our mantra is to keep supply chain and commerce moving. Never a truer word could be spoken in the current climate. So please do take a look at the learning supply chain. Feel free to browse our website. And for Martin and Robert, There's a lot of information there about our web WMS. To be quite honest, yes, we do believe it's the best WMS on the market, but that won't surprise you. But take a look at the web content, explore it for yourself and see what you think about the concept of how that product works. I've also put on the screen here, we have a generic email address which goes into our information box, uk@manh.com. But if you want to reach out to me personally as someone that you've seen and sort of seen speaking, I've put my personal email address on there as well. And feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or indeed on the Deliver portal where I am registered and my profile is present. I'd love to hear from you. I'd also love your feedback on the workshop. If we're going to continue with these virtual events, we want to make them as viable and compelling as possible for you as the audience. So please do let me know what you thought of today's workshop. And next time, we'll try and adapt it to suit you even better.
So Georgia, while we were reaching a conclusion, of course, people leave their questions to the last minute. So I just want to share with you two last ones before we wrap up finally. So we've got one from Yom a few seconds ago. What is the right moment to start thinking about TMS?
The right moment to start thinking about TMS is when you need to manage your own fleet. You need to manage a large number of routes on a daily, weekly basis. There's a freight spend level, isn't there, Alex, that people should start considering?
Yeah, we can sort of look at that freight spend level that organizations have, but also in terms of when they, as you say, when they've got their own fleet, when they need to look at becoming a lot more agile in terms of their delivery. So moving to that timings is absolutely key important, and also being able to move between parcel carriers and your own parcel fleet as well can be quite important.
And another final question we have from Robert: is there an option to share risk or gains with Manhattan? So let me elaborate on that. So it takes months to implement the system and months to discover it needs adapting, by which time it's too late to move on.
Yeah, I mean, and we do a lot of sort of pre-sales work with our customers, investigate processes, play those processes back. We also do something called a Manhattan Associates Value Assessment, a MAVA. We love our acronyms, where we actually look at some of the benefits and work with our customers and prospects to identify what those savings and benefits could be. So it's not a question of, well, we'll just introduce the functionality. We'll actually look at what benefits that our prospects could receive from deploying the system, and bring some of our learnings from our customer base, from what we see as sort of best in class standards, and help our prospects achieve those as well.
Thank you, Alex. And
I would add to that, Claire, if I may, that we do have some testimonials with regards to gains that customers have achieved through the use of technology. And we're also finding that one of the biggest risks is doing nothing. Those companies who are steeped in legacy tend to be the organizations who are struggling to adapt to the pandemic and who are struggling to create an efficient e-commerce supply chain. Sorry, Claire.
That's okay. Perfect. Perfect. So thank you both for such an informative and insightful presentation. I hope you, our audience, enjoyed it as much as I did. Just to remind you that you can download the Learning Supply Chain. I believe that link was shared with you a couple of minutes ago. So please do deep dive into that if you want to know more about the science of fulfillment. Our next session will be beginning on the hour at 3 p.m. CET, so I look forward to seeing you there. Hello and welcome to you all again to this live interactive workshop sponsored by our long-term partner, DS Smith. So the topic and focus of this workshop is circular design principles for e-commerce. And again, I encourage you to get involved, participate in our polls, post your questions, post your comments. We'd love to hear from you. You can, of course, follow us also on social media, on our LinkedIn, on our Twitter feeds with hashtag Deliver2020. So I'm now delighted to introduce our speaker on our virtual stage. He is Gavin Mounts, the e-commerce design manager with DS Smith. So welcome, Gavin. It's lovely to have you here. So why don't you give us a bit of an introduction about your role and what you do?
Great, thank you, Claire. So I've been involved in structural design for around the past 25 years, and more in the latter stage, I've moved into more of a research and development position. And then more recently, I led the Amazon certification project and oversaw the building and installation of our 2 DIS e-commerce testing laboratories. And then that's led kind of giving us a lot of great insights. And so now my main role is to create best practice and training material for our designers and delivering this, and then also to lead a number of e-commerce specialty workshops. Okay, so now I'd like to present to you our circular design principles for e-commerce. Okay, so before we move directly into the principles themselves, it's really important to understand the reason why these have been developed. And sustainability has been a hot topic during the past 12 months, and it's certainly a high priority on everyone's agenda, and probably not one that can be easily discussed within such a short workshop due to the complexity. However, where does this waste and pollution originate from? And is it right to always blame the end user, or should we be looking more at the source of the problem? And this is where the Ellen MacArthur Foundation highlights that pollution's not accidental, but the consequences of decisions made at the design stage, and results in around 80% of the overall environmental impact. So this is a huge responsibility for designers and innovators when developing new products. So before we talk about the actual design principles, I think it's good to have a look at what is a circular economy first. So in the past, and still currently with some businesses, they use a linear model, which is taking the resources, making the product, and then disposing of them. Whereas the circular economy looks beyond this model and is based on 3 key principles of designing out waste and pollution, keeping products and materials in use, and then regenerating natural systems where possible. So if we look at the first principle of the circular economy, we look at how to design out waste and pollution, and how does this kind of relate to packaging. So we can look not only in the supply cycle of yourself and your customers, but in the supplier supply cycle as well. So there could be unnecessary manufacturing trim waste, it could be excessive, and even down to the structural design that you choose that can create waste within the supply cycle. And then also, is the packaging 100% recyclable? Or does it use any non-circular materials? So this could be an example of sort of plastic opening strips within the corrugated packaging, or even the use of plastic bubble wrap void fill. Then the second principle is to keep products and materials in use. And this is how to look at keeping them in the supply chain for longer. So this could be a second life for a box. So example, it could be a gifting pack that could then be turned into a storage box in the home. And then also making the pack returnable so that it can be one single material that has been used for the delivery and then the return without adding any excess materials. And then there's also examples of the product being used kind of multiple times in a fulfillment center. For example, like a pick bin. And then the third principle is to regenerate natural systems. And we mean by this the kind of use of FSC certified papers, where the forests are not only managed sustainably, but then replanted and regenerated as well. So the circular design principles, we all know about the subject of sustainability and how complex it is. But especially when you're creating a scalable innovation for multiple countries, and that those countries then have varying recycling guidelines within the regions. I think there are something like 26 different curbside recycling regulations in the UK alone. So this is why it's important that the circular design principles had to be created and provide a framework. So we've seen how important the design process is to a more circular economy, but the circular design principles align our packaging solutions with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation circular economy model. So it's a building block to ensure that this becomes an everyday way of life for all our design and innovation teams. So our 5 circular design principles are: principle 1 is to protect brands and products. Principle 2 is to optimize materials and structure. Principle 3 is to maintain and recover materials. And then principle 4 is to maximize supply cycle efficiencies. And principle 5 is we find a better way. So if we look at this, principle 1, we look at protecting brands and products. So this is the packaging protects the products, but it also the resources invested in them, so your brand identity. So this could be really critical because it could be the first moment of contact for a new customer, and their whole impression of your brand could be built on this one experience. It's easy for a great unboxing experience to go viral on social media, but it's also just as easy for a negative experience to be posted as well. So getting it right is absolutely critical. So most of the images in this presentation are actually from personal experiences and personal shopping as well. We, in our home, we probably buy about 80 to 90% online. So this was a experience of a clothing brand within the UK, and they had great stores, really helpful, friendly staff, great glossy packaging, looked really quality. And then we ordered a €150 handbag from my wife online, and it arrived in this very crumpled, white, dirty box. There was no void fill, and the handbag was bouncing around inside. And it was not aligned with the store or brand expectations. And it left us feeling quite disappointed, and that we're not important to the supplier. So this is how you can look at protecting your brand. And then in regards to protecting the product, it's really important to understand the supply chain and the complexities of every touch point, where there could be impact, drop, or vibration. So the pictures on the top the top left and right, they identify some cosmetics that were shipped from Italy to the UK. And unfortunately, the paper void fill did not provide enough protection, whether it was not enough paper void fill, or you can see that it was quite flattened out by the time we received it. And even the tops of the bottles were taped, but still leaked and contaminated the whole delivery. And then on the other kind of aspect as well is we received some more cosmetics in a plastic jiffy bag, and it had around 3 to 4 meters of plastic bubble wrap. So it's really important that, yes, the bubble wrap protected the product, but it provided quite a very poor view of sustainability and recyclability as well, because it all had to be placed within the main bin. So again, it's hard to get that balance and protect the product without using unsustainable materials or adding too much materials. And then it's not only important about protecting, but it's looking at what these damages can cause as well for the brand reputation. So it's not only having a customer complaint, it could add extra costs for return shipping, the unpacking, and then the restocking, disposal of the product, replacement of the shipping of the replacement item, and then refund or compensation, especially with courier claims and then negative reviews. So damage claims are only the tip of the iceberg. And again, it's really important to understand the full supply cycle. So as we talk about protecting the brands and the products, it's really important, as we said, to understand the supply chain. And when we first started off many years ago designing for e-commerce, it was our testing process was generally through sending the parcels out by a courier, and we maybe send 2 products out, and one would get quite dented or quite damaged, and the other one would be perfectly fine. And there was this kind of unknown area of what happened and at what touch points. So over the past 6 years, I've spent time investigating the supply cycle and spending time directly with couriers to see how every single touch point and what actually happens to your parcel within the supply cycle. And as you can see, those kind of impacts can have heavy items coming down the conveyor belt and compressing it, and quite high drops, sometimes from 1.5 meters. So again, it's important to understand all these elements and use the correct materials and the correct design to get the right performance. So from all these insights, we created the disc testing methodology, and we also created our own machines. And we developed and installed these in 2 laboratories, one in the United Kingdom and one in the UK. And so this is our own testing process, which is much more flexible and agile to the product needs, and can replicate the supply cycle on every single touch point in much more detail. We also understand that the supply cycle is complex, and there's other elements to consider. So we focus on not only protecting the content against physical damage, but also against environmental conditions, where this may be that the courier is walking in and out of the van in wet weather, and the packaging could get quite wet, and especially if you have like a heavy item like wine bottles, it could easily drop through the bottom or not be suitable. So we ensure for full supply chain suitability. And we also look at ergonomics, handling, and inclusive design, because it's very important, especially with the Amazon A-Pass, for frustration-free packaging. Then we design to comply with industry standards if required, so ISTA 6 for A-Pass and Amazon certification, or ASTM or UN certification. And also, as we said, about keeping a consistent brand experience. But we not only look at all of these, but we consider all of them at every touch point in the supply chain. So that brings us to our first set of questions, and we'd be really grateful if you would participate in this, because we're very interested in hearing your points of view. Okay. So if we move on to principle 2, where we look at optimizing materials and structures. So it's optimized use of the packaging materials to save resources and reduce waste. So an example of this is over the past 6 years, as we said, we've done continuous insights and investigation into the supply chain and pain points. We've done some 2,000 disc tests since 2016, and we've looked at comparing different designs. So how much difference does it make to use a regular box and then use a regular box with variable heights? And these are actually engineered fail points designed into the structure. So it's quite important to understand whether you're going to invest and increase the material costs to have a variable height and then save on volumetric, or whether you're going to just use a regular standard size box. So if we look at end-to-end efficiencies and we compare 2 kind of very standard designs in the supply chain, and we consider the differences a design choice can make. So if we have a regular FEFCO 0429, it has a waste of about 26%, whereas a secure EPAC has a waste of around about 9%. But not only does it have a less waste for the same size, but it also has a reduced blank size, and it even performs 50% better in supply cycle testing. So it's quite important to understand the differences that just a design choice will make. And then even look further into these end-to-end efficiencies when we talked about having internal efficiencies and external efficiencies. So just by removing 7 millimeters off the width and 2 millimeters off the ceiling flap and 5 millimeters off the depth, we could actually gain a further 100 millimeter reduction in paper usage on our corrugator, and we had 0 paper trim as well. So it's all round improvements within the design. So one of the things that's very important if you're doing multi-packs or you don't have a fixed size item that you're packing, it's really important to challenge your supplier or your current box suite, because there could be some really great efficiencies and material savings to be had. And then there's also an importance to understand the performance of the packaging. In the secure EPAC, yes, it performs better, it runs faster, it has less waste. So it can look like being a really great pack, but then there's certain elements that you can change within designs that then make them become a bad situation. So if you increase the size of this pack to just over a medium-sized pack, it can become very difficult to handle on the pack bench and slow down your packing operations. So again, this is very important to understand this when choosing the right design. And how do we help choose the right design? We developed a methodology called the sweet spot. So this is where we design packaging and the product together in harmony. And every customer has a different requirement or need or kind of focal point. So whilst we were working on e-commerce innovation workshops, we noticed in the last 12 months that people were focusing very heavily on sustainability. And so when you start to do this, you can end up providing sometimes a poor end user experience, because maybe you've taken away all of the print and maybe some of the glossy kind of elements of the pack. And then you can sometimes focus too heavily on the protection, and then it becomes complex for the end user, maybe not such an inclusive design. And then also you could be moving away from the sustainability element by using too much material. So it's really important to focus on this sweet spot. And then overarching all of this is the innovation efficiency, that whatever you create, and when you find this sweet spot, it cannot cost any more or reduce speed or in the supply chain or the packing elements either. So again, it's very important to understand this.
So Gavin, I might just jump in before you post
Okay.
the questions, the second poll questions. We have the results from the first poll. So the question was, have you received any complaints about your packaging in the last 12 months? Boxes too large, we have 36%. Excessive material used, 21%. We also have no complaints received, 36%, which is good.
Good to see.
And the second related question, do you test your packaging to understand its performance within the supply chain? We have 38% saying they run in-house tests. And then the lowest percentage, 8%, yes, we test all our packaging at an accredited laboratory. So that might not come as a surprise to you.
It's quite interesting mix because of obviously the Amazon A pass in the last year and how we've seen the uptake with that, and it has to be completed through an accredited laboratory. But there again, I can also see that maybe some of the suppliers have an accredited laboratory, and that's quite interesting. If you look at that together, it's quite an uptake on how much testing we've seen, sort of maybe 10 years ago. So that's really interesting results.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm just going to encourage you, our audience, again, participate now in this next second poll. So 2 questions, but essentially 1 poll. Have you investigated reducing the amount of packaging material you use to ship orders? And you have your options there. And has sustainability changed in your priorities during 2020? So get polling.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, so if we move on to principle 3, we maintain and recover materials. So this is looking at quality, durability and recyclability, and keeping the packaging products and materials in use for as long as possible whilst eliminating waste. So an example of this was we had an inquiry from a customer for a picking system for a new storage system that they just had installed. And they asked for it to be flexible and modular. So we made it to fit perfectly within their shelving space. And we didn't just make it as a standard kind of construction. It was actually made in 3 parts. So the end panels could be released and the main bodies could be changed to make different widths. So it had a half shelf, a quarter, an eighth and a 16th. And so this allowed them to be able to pull sections out and make them quite agile and adaptable. But it meant that they didn't have to dispose of the whole pack. And they could actually flatten the bodies for storage or the end panels when they were not in use. And they could be reused and kind of connected together with different bodies. And it was not only fully recyclable, but it was also made from recyclable materials. So it was just to kind of look at the whole need of the customer and try and make it as flexible as possible rather than just giving a fixed solution. And then another example of recovering materials is we've had some designs on reversible and returnable packs, so they can sort of be delivered cleanly and then turned inside out and the product put back in and then returned again. And this could be done without using tapes or glue. So it was just a click lock system. And then we've also developed some other returnable packs, again, with no ripper tape to open or adhesive tapes. So fully curbside recyclable and 100% recyclable materials. So looking further into this and corrugated has a great highest recycling rate. So 97% of corrugated packaging is able to be recycled. And in Europe, 85.8% is recycled. And the US, we have about 78.2%. But it's also pretty incredible that fibers can be recycled up to 25 times. And then in the UK, we'd actually had some research, and we found that from the packaging being made, delivered to the customer, back to being recycled, back into paper, and then back to packaging, could actually happen within 14 days with our closed loop recycling system. And then even in the worst possible case scenario, if corrugated packaging is littered or ends up in the environment, it will break down in less than 6 months as well. But it's not only about the recovering of the materials. The circular corrugated system and this closed loop would run out of fiber within 6 to 8 months without virgin inputs. So again, sustainably managed forests, renewable and replanted, is absolutely critical. And 3.2 million seedlings are planted every day in the United States. And the EU forest area has increased by 3% since 2010. So we have question 3, but I see, have we had the results of question 2?
Yes, Gavin.
Okay.
I feel like I'm giving election results. So the question was, has sustainability changed in your priorities during 2020? So we have 79%, it's increased in priority, remained the same for the remaining of respondents. And have you investigated reducing the amount of packaging material you use to ship orders? Within the last 12 months, we have 36%, but then an even split across the others in terms of 2 months and 6 months. So any thoughts on that, Gavin, from your side?
I'm really quite, not shocked, but a little bit surprised increased in priority with sustainability, although it's a hot topic. It's really interesting to see how hot a topic it is, and especially with the COVID situation, how everybody's had to adjust, adapt, and you know, I was maybe thinking that it may have remained the same a lot more for people, but it's really great to see that it's increased in priority. And it certainly seems like from the second question that there could be some great opportunities then to maybe investigate further reduction in packing material and you know, the shipping of orders. So no, some really interesting results are great.
Yeah, for sure. So our third poll is, what do you feel would make packaging easier to recycle for your end users? You see your list of options there on your screen. And then, is reusable packaging an opportunity you will be exploring?
Okay, great. And so if we move on to principle 4, we look at how we maximize supply chain efficiencies. So as we mentioned earlier, this is looking at not just the efficiency from your fulfillment centers to the end user, for example, it's also how we look at internal efficiencies when we're manufacturing your products as well. So for example, if you were shipping by palletization, we've had a customer provide a packaging solution to us, and they'd already looked at optimization, and they had a 26 case count, and they were getting about 3,432 items on a pallet. But they kind of resized the pack and managed to get it down to 3,744 items on the pallet, so a 9.1% increase. But we started to look at the end-to-end supply chain. And when we challenged them, if they change the case count to 22 items per pack, we actually managed to increase this to 15.4% increase from their original quantity. So it's really important when you're looking at optimization in the supply chain, it's not to just look at the kind of cubic optimization, because in some cases they added some millimeters to the packs, which increased the optimization in that regard, but it didn't actually increase the amount of products on the pallet. So it was a good indicator to look at how many physical products were on the pallet, not just a case quantity and number of cases on there. So again, looking at the end-to-end supply chain. And so for a 2.8% increase in pallet cube, we actually managed to achieve a 6.3% increase in optimization. But more towards e-commerce, looking at kind of like volumetric shipping, something just to be aware of was that we investigated some designs for a cosmetic company, and they were shipping in volumetric, and they were using padded envelopes. And due to the kind of nature and the design of it, to get a certain fixed amount of products in, it took 6.7 litre of volumetric capacity. But whilst using a box with variable height, it actually used 4.2 litres of volumetric capacity. So there was a 59% increase, which is quite substantial. And things like just having the glue edge around the outside of the envelope, I think created about an extra 10% in the volumetric capacity. So it really is the devil's in the detail, and fully understanding the supply chain. So a padded bag may be more cost effective in the actual purchase price, but in the shipping, it was quite substantially more expensive. And then this was a recent example of a product that was delivered to myself. And as we mentioned earlier, we're talking about understanding the supply cycle and the variable heights. Putting perforations into the pack is actually an engineered fail point to start with. So if you do not collapse the packs, they can quite easily tear and fall apart during the supply cycle. But I had a small item recently delivered, and it was only taking up about 20% of the pack volumetric capacity, and the pack wasn't actually collapsed. So whoever was packing wasn't instructed about collapsing the pack correctly, and so they wasted approximately 20% volumetric area as well. So again, it's not only just about choosing the right design, understanding the supply cycle, but even about how you train your packing staff and how it's kind of packed on the bench. So moving on to the pack bench, there's even kind of important supply cycle efficiencies to look at here. So, you know, do you have packing templates? It could help to quickly identify items and which box selection is correct if you don't have that in the warehouse management system. There's also things like health and safety. We've seen in some kind of furniture e-commerce retailers that they were having to lift 20-kilogram items onto the pack bench, and then they were using an 0201 design and they had to lift it even higher. So we had to come along and redesign a tray and lid scenario to make this much safer for health and safety. And then even as we talked about the trained packers, it's really critical that when a new solution is introduced or when new staff are kind of introduced to the packing area, that they understand how and the functionality of the pack design works. We were at a very large e-commerce retailer in the UK, and we observed a packer choosing the next box size up from the one that it should have been packed in. And he was doing this about 6 times an hour, and it was costing around 10 cents or 10 pence extra per box. And with 30 pack benches and 2 shifts over 5 days a week, the actual calculation of the cost by this mistake was running into thousands of pounds. So again, it's full supply cycle efficiencies. And we've made it to question 4. So what have we got from question 3?
So Gavin, the first question is reusable packaging an opportunity you will be exploring. So most of you, our audience, saying yes within 6 months for sure. Much less is within the next 12 months. So it's obviously a high priority looking at those numbers. And then what do you feel would make packaging easier to recycle for your end users? Monomaterial solutions, we have 38%, easy to separate materials, 46%. So what do you make of that, Gavin?
I'm very impressed by the reusable packaging opportunity. We had 0 response or no interest, so that's great to see. And I mean, within the next 12 months, that's going to be 69%. So that's really great interest and definitely some opportunities. And curbside or recyclability, it's quite interesting to see that clear instructions for 15%. So that's something we really need to take on board. And easy separation of materials is really great to see. Easy to fit in the recycling bins is quite interesting because that was something that was a bit of a topic and we were debating whether that could be a problem. But having these polls and seeing these results really help us, I think, to understand where we need to focus and how we will innovate in the future.
Yes,
so,
and
thank you.
We have a question from Jerry just in. He says, I think that most companies around still take the packaging as a burden in terms of cost and try to minimize that. However, in terms of marketing and sustainability, it's great to have branded eco package. Do you think we already got in the time where this won't affect your costs multiple times?
I think this is what we're trying to look at here is the bigger picture, because sometimes it's really hard to take out cost, but one of the things is understanding performance in the supply cycle and using clever design. You can sometimes reduce material and you can offset cost, and we always try to really work hard for it to be neutral where possible if any improvements are made. And we would really like to bring some savings to the supply chain. So I think transparency and openness are one of the critical things there. That the more we understand about the handling, and as we showed in depth, so getting access to the pack benches, the supply cycle, and understanding all of this, we do not end up putting too much material or designing unnecessarily features into the pack as well then. So I think that could really help us to keep costs neutral or help with that area.
Thanks, Gavin. So our next set of polling questions: when did you last carry out an end-to-end supply chain audit of your packaging, and what is your biggest packaging pain point within your supply chain?
Okay, thank you, Claire. So principle 5, where we find a better way. So this is living our values, and we challenge ourselves and our customers to develop more circular packaging solutions. So I wanted to show you an example of probably a good example in regards to the question that we've just had about cost and kind of eco packaging. So I was challenged by a customer that had a complaint of items leaking during transit. And so this was completed during the lockdown, I think about 4 months ago. So the package was delivered to my home, and as you can see, it arrived absolutely fine, no kind of problems, no damage to the parcel whatsoever. And then I looked inside, and although the products were complained about as leaking, there was actually 2 boxes, one within inside each other, and the second box inside was moving around. And then when I actually opened that box up, there was 2 soap refill pouches of 1 litre each, so around about 2 kilograms in weight. And because they'd been measured flat on a pack bench, the box had been designed to the maximum extremities of the pack, and they'd moved about 50 millimeters within transit. And as you can see, there was quite a lot of airspace still within the pack. So we completed a supply chain analysis, and as I said, this was conducted during lockdown at home. And I identified areas. You could see markings within the pouches of how the packs have been creased and sort of crushed during transit and sliding around within the boxes. So we identified this and looked at how this could be the source of the complaint for the customer. And then we started to use our supply chain strategy, and I looked at it and thought about how we could reduce the box size. So from this, you can obviously see that the 2 packs, if they're topped and tailed and packed sideways, you can reduce the overall box size by around about 40%. And so the materials would be reduced by over 50% because we eliminated 1 box, and we then conducted and analysed this using the value tool to understand how much savings this could bring through packing, sourcing of 2 boxes, and then the overboxing as well. So I handmade a sample at home quickly to check that everything fitted correctly. And the final design was not the one pictured, but it was an 0203 design with fully overlapping flaps that were side loading. So it reduced all the fluid movement of the soap greatly by topping and tailing them. And then it reduced the ability for them to crease and crush, and eliminated the damage within the supply chain. So I think this is a really good example of showing how the understanding of the supply chain and applying the tools and experience that we've got can not only fix a problem, but to also reduce costs. So, as the question said earlier, can this sustainability and eco packaging actually cost less or be cost neutral? Then yes, in a lot of cases it can. So as we said, sustainability does not always have to come at a cost. So with the right knowledge, expertise, tools, and collaboration, a better way can be found. And I think collaboration is probably one of the critical points here, in that the more open and access we have to the supply chain, and we have the ability and tools to create audits, and this helps us to really understand and identify better opportunities. And then, so by innovating together, we can help to solve the bigger sustainability challenges, that we face today, and also the impact on future generations. So we come to question 5, but I see we've got the results of question 4.
Yes. So what is your biggest packaging pain point within your supply chain was the last question. And we have 38% on the last mile and 31% on fulfillment. And then the second question, when did you last carry out an end-to-end supply chain audit of your packaging? In the last 6 months, actually 45%. So what are your thoughts, Gavin, on those two pieces?
So packaging pain points, I'm quite interested. I'd love to understand more about the inbound, because I understand some of the designs can be quite big or sort of difficult to store. We've seen problems before where customers have large objects like furniture and things like that, and that can be a real problem. So I'd really love to understand more about where the inbound problems and there's opportunities there. The fulfillment, that's quite high. So I was kind of possibly expecting more in the last mile where there might be more damages, etc. So that's quite an interesting result and quite eye-opening. And then that's really good to see that 45% have carried out an audit in the last 6 months, but also quite surprising to see that 36% have never carried out an audit, considering what opportunities there are to really reduce costs and improve sustainability as well.
Mm. We also have a question from Sebastian, and he's asking you, what are the most exciting developments you've seen in terms of solution design, application, or new materials being available?
Oh, I can't tell the top secret ones because obviously they're going through for patent at the moment. But I wrote an article recently that talked about the differences between kind of adapted packaging, so people that were taking existing designs, and then we started to see people moving into e-commerce specific, where we talked about performance and understanding the supply chain. And then there's kind of like the next generation packaging, where Amazon have started to look into not only kind of the design, but sort of materials. They've looked at packing speeds and machinery, the whole element. So I think the excitement is very much around, you know, the cardboard box is 120 years old, and retail has long history and knowledge to work from, whereas e-commerce is changing every 12 months, and there's new developments, new materials, new designs, and it's very dynamic. And I think over the next 12 months, maybe 2 years, we're going to see a greater amount of investigation, probably just more outside of the design and more into the whole supply cycle end to end.
We have also a question from Ben. So he's wondering, does DS Smith offer a full solution to its clients, combining its packaging supply with its recycling capability?
Yes, I mean, obviously we have, from our paper mills through to our manufacturing sites through to our kind of recycling. So we have a closed loop system. So yes, there's full availability for end to end.
Okay. And then we've got our final poll, number 5. What will be driving your packaging strategy over the next 12 months, and your list of options? And what would you like to see from next generation packaging?
Okay. So we finished the presentation. So I will say thank you very much to everyone that's listened, and await your feedback on the questions.
Okay. So while we tie that up and wait for those results, Gavin, we have these circular design principles essentially aimed at designers, right? So, but how can other parts of the business support this and support these principles as such?
Well, I think, as we said earlier, it's very much around, I mean, the operations and procurement, and everyone needs to be able to come together, because to really get the end-to-end kind of savings and maximize the sustainability, sometimes there has to be kind of changes throughout the whole supply cycle. So it may be, you know, sort of like, as I said, how it comes inbound and how it's presented, or kind of harmonization of the box range. So it could be speaking to procurement on understanding, you know, the DS Smith Ebro system, which kind of can harmonize the box suite for volumetric shipping. It needs to understand what parcels have been shipped in the kind of last 6 months, and it can start to analyze and then make recommendations. So again, the designers very much, yes, have the input on the kind of style and material performance, etc., things like that. But if we have as much data on feedback from kind of returns, or what are the pain points that we've seen here explained, then I think everybody can have a real influence on the final design and overall the kind of sustainability of the pack.
Okay, great. Well, our polls are in. So for that question, what would you like to see from next generation? Oh no, this is the last. We should have shared the results from the last one. So what would you like to see from next generation packaging? We've got new materials at 43%, secondary use or reusability 43%. What are your thoughts on that?
That's really interesting to see about new materials, because there's a lot of hard work going on at the moment in that, and to try and keep something fully sustainable, fully recyclable, there is some really great interesting areas there. But I'm very interested to see ability to right size is had 0%, and secondary use or reusability is very high as well. So yeah, very interesting results there.
And the second question, what will be driving your packaging strategy over the next 12 months? So we have 50% enhanced customer experience. That's probably no surprise for you.
I mean, that's really interesting and fantastic. I mean, increased packing speed, okay, that's very low feedback. But supply chain optimization, obviously, from some of the results that we've seen, there was people that hadn't optimized their supply chain, so that's quite in keeping. Reduction in packaging materials, yes, but 50% on enhanced customer experience. I guess I don't know whether that's possibly more from COVID, and possibly more people moving online and having their first kind of contact with the brand, through the home delivery, etc. So that's a really interesting result to gain as well.
Okay, so I'm not sure if we're going to be getting the poll results for question 5.
I think that was the question 5 results there, clear.
Oh, right, okay. That's good. So just in terms of wrapping it up then, Gavin, we've talked about the 5 circular design principles. There's a lot to take in there, such a lot of great information and great ways of moving forward. But for our audience, if they had to prioritize, like what would be the next steps now moving forward?
I think it's about making a change, really, and it's about a mindset. And this is what we're training our designers in with these circular design principles. The small steps add up, and these tiny changes of a millimeter here and there. So we're kind of actually teaching our designers to think small, not big now as well. So everywhere where a millimeter counts, and as you kind of use this methodology, it becomes much more natural and then a way of life. So no matter how big the inquiry, even if it's a smaller inquiry or a global inquiry, we work with that methodology and we apply it in the same way. And then in time, these smaller changes become much bigger changes. And as I said, it becomes much more natural. So start small, I think, would be the theory. Make a start and start small.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thanks so much, Gavin, for that, really clear step-by-step presentation. Just for our audience, there is a downloadable link that will be shared in the chat window, a link for design principles at DS Smith, the particular webpage. So I do encourage you to go and take a look at that. And also, please tune in for our next session, which will be on the hour. We will have a masterclass session, which focuses on supply chain agility. So I hope to see you there.
Thank you.
Welcome everyone to Masterclass 4. We have three great speakers here covering three very current issues. We look at everything from artificial intelligence to Facebook advertising to how companies can monitor their effect on the environment. So without further ado, let's turn to our first speaker, Peter Lewin. Peter is the Senior Director of Strategy and Marketplace Insights Europe at Levi Strauss, known worldwide for its iconic jeans and other clothing as well. Peter's going to talk to us about the importance of building the right team. That's something very basic. That's something that we've had to know way before new technologies, the importance of getting the right group of people together, all the way to how technologies like artificial intelligence can deliver the right results. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you, Sonia. It's a real pleasure to be here today at Deliver 2020. My name is Peter Lewin. I'm responsible for strategy, artificial intelligence, and consumer insights for Levi Strauss Europe. And the topic I'm going to discuss with you today is values-led innovation. My team have been kind of extant for a little bit under a year. And part of what we've been mandated to do is to help Levi Strauss Europe, and by extension, the broader business, move forward into a new world. And the reason for this is, we are a relatively successful company. We've been around for 167 years. But the world is changing, and as we transform from more of a wholesale DTC, brick and mortar, waterfall, one-to-many marketing kind of organization into the future, we need to embed the right practices, things like design thinking and artificial intelligence, and bring the organization along with us. So what I'd like to do today is share 5 tips and some concrete examples from just this past year, that we've learned as we've gone on this little journey with our colleagues. So as I mentioned, we're 167 years old. You might be aware that we had the patent for and industrialized the blue jean by our founder, Levi Strauss. We rose to prominence with popular culture and embedded as kind of a lifestyle icon in the US and abroad. And we've been present at really important cultural moments around the world. And this bit's really quite important. Based on the values of our founder, we've used our position as a well-known and loved brand to help drive social progress externally and internally at different points in time. It's something that's very important to us as a company. So we've got this wonderful foundation, and recently, over the last 5 years, we've been rejuvenating the brand and bring it direct to the consumer, in particular in Europe, where you can see one of our recent stores in Milan and another one that we've opened this year in Prague. Let me just stop there for a second. We're doing well enough that we're able to open a store in 2020 in Prague, and that's not the only one that we've opened this year, right? We've got a lot of momentum in Europe, growing 15 to 20% relative to a market that's growing 2%. So that's a company that's doing very well. And when you think about the task ahead of us, the need to change, to become much more digitally oriented, that actually creates an obstacle, right? We don't have as much of a burning platform as we should. But the reality is that the world is changing. The consumer is shopping in a much more omni-channel way than they have in the past. They expect much more convenience than they've had in the past. And being able to adopt to them really quickly means we have to be consumer-centric, and we need to make many more decisions much more quickly than we've had to in the past. And that means that we need to change our ways of working and capabilities, as I say, really become very consumer-centric and very enabled by artificial intelligence. So the question then becomes, how do you get this super successful business to change? And the answer is not with a big bang. And this is tip number 1, is to start small and think big. And we've been starting with little beacon projects that are meaningful and that get attention, right? They're not going to shift the needle too much, but they're meaningful and they'll get attention. And because what we're delivering is real actionable results, real capabilities that people like and need, both consumer and customer facing as well as internal tools, all of a sudden what we're finding is that more and more people within the organization are coming along that journey with us and asking for those digital capabilities. But that begs the question, how do you have a beacon that's successful? And there are a couple parts to it. The first of it is tip number 2, which is that you need to satisfy your partner's deep needs. So what does that mean? We think of 3 questions when we think about satisfying those needs. The first is, will our colleagues co-create it? The second is, will they spend time, money, and effort working with us in new ways? And that's a bit uncomfortable, right? That's learning and doing things differently. So that's a really meaningful sign. And then the last one is whether or not they want to scale it. If we see the answer to all 3 of those questions as yes, we know that we've really got a great opportunity to work together, to learn to do something different and to innovate. Now, the first example I'm going to walk you through is a very recent example. It's from Monday is actually when we launched it, and it's called Levi's by Levi's. It's a circular economy concept. And the story behind this concept is it started, I don't know, maybe like 8 months ago. The team started thinking about this and what they wanted to put out in the market. And it wasn't until they got pretty far down the line that they began to engage with us. But when they did, it was so important to them because there's high visibility internally and high visibility externally. Because it's so value oriented, they really wanted to make sure that what they did would succeed. And so they brought us in to help them think through, what should the consumer journey be and what really matters to them. The way that I put it is, if you think about design thinking, we're just doing a little proto-design thinking, really focusing on desirability, but being highly, highly consumer-centric. And we did that together with our colleagues in the UK. This concept just launched in London on Great Marlborough Street. But we did that in conjunction with them. And because of that, they really owned the output and they owned the recommendations. And it went so well that they've asked us to help figure out how to scale this business across the region. Now, when you're responsible for an influencing organization like ours, we don't own the business, but we can influence the business. Success frequently looks like our partners coming back and asking for more. That looks like success. But this begs the question then, in order to deliver success, what is it that we need to do in order to kind of hold up our end of the bargain? And that's tip number 3, which is make sure that you've got the team to deliver value that others can perceive. Let me break that down into 2 pieces. So the first one is the team. And when I think about the team and what really powers my team to do well, it's 4 buckets. Now, the first bucket is high level of education, right? So we've got some PhDs and masters. When you think about artificial intelligence and strategy, and to an extent consumer insights, education becomes really important. You need to have the tangible skills. And then the next 3 buckets we focus on are all related to diversity. And the reason for that is when you've got a problem, you want to be able to tackle it in a holistic way from a bunch of different perspectives. And at the same time, when you're dealing with different types of partners, maybe somebody from marketing, maybe somebody from merchandising, e-com, retail, you have to deal with different people. And having diverse experiences and diverse perspectives makes you better at that. So we really focused on building a team that has diverse expertise, spiky profiles in AI and strategy and insights. We want a diverse experience in industries, and we want diverse life experiences. And this team, by the way, is 70% diverse, by which I mean not cisgender straight white male. And for an AI team in particular, that's pretty remarkable. And I'm pretty certain that this has really contributed to our ability to do what we do well. So the next piece is delivering value that others can perceive. We've hit upon a virtuous cycle. It's the model that's working for us at the moment that helps us generate positive momentum. We're going to walk through a couple of examples, but the thing that I want to focus on at the moment is this point around earning trust by delivering measurable value. And that enables you to get involved in a topic early. It gets the partners to bring you in early and help collaborate. Now, the example I'm going to share with you is around the development of our AI promotion tool, which I believe Chip mentioned yesterday in our earnings release. But that tool allowed us to deliver value. And we did it initially for Levi.com, where we delivered 5 times better results than our benchmark. And the way that we did that is we got involved early. We got involved early by recognizing that Black Friday 2019 didn't do as well as we wanted to, and we knew that our capabilities were a little bit rigid. So we decided that we hypothesized that if we leverage elasticities at scale, we could use AI to outperform through surgical discounting on the website. And we engaged the e-com team in part because they were really excited to learn, and in part because lockdown actually gave us a lot of room to experiment. And we worked very closely with them. We collaborated on our objectives. We had limited operational complexity to deploy the capability. And then, as I said, we delivered these really great results. And that put us in an opportunity to try something bigger and more complex. And that's going into the brick and mortar channel. And when we did this in the brick and mortar channel, we delivered 20% more revenues and 10% more profit. And here again, the process was kind of similar. We knew that there was going to be an opportunity to get involved in end of season sales in Germany and in our owned and operated stores. And we thought that using a surgical approach would also work in the store. And by the way, this was very much a hypothesis. There were people on both sides of this argument in our company. So we wanted to test. And that meant getting the retail management involved early in the process, working really closely to understand what their commercial needs are so we could help them deliver upon them. Remember, satisfying the stakeholders' deep needs. We needed to understand what they wanted and delivered on them. And then we had to work very closely on the test implementation because brick and mortar is much more complex. You have people who need to work like a machine. So we had to guarantee test integrity, and we delivered the results. And now we're in the process of scaling this up across the region, and we'll deliver a productized tool early next year. Very exciting. Now that's been somewhat of a quantitative example. I'd like to take you through a bit more of a qualitative example. And this leads me to tip number 4, which is building leverage and trust step by step. For a consumer-focused brand, the consumer experience, the value proposition, the marketing is everything, right? Without that, you don't have a brand, you don't really have success. And so what we've done is we've looked at the creation process. We start with formulating questions, identifying problems, developing solutions, and then deploying the solutions. And we asked, where should we start in order to generate maximum traction? And what we found is that starting at the end actually gives us the best opportunity to deliver traction. Why? Because our partners are closest to success. If they're bringing us in then, they probably really want support and help. And it gives us an opportunity to help them get over the finish line. And from there, we can build trust to move backwards in the process until ultimately we get to the point where we can formulate questions. And that's really important because we come with a different perspective than a 167-year-old retail apparel company. We come with points of view from different industries, from strategy, from the consumers, and from the AI capability. And that means we can ask different questions, and we can also answer questions in a different way. And that becomes hugely powerful over time. So the examples of our trust journey, I've already walked you through Levi's by Levi's. I'm now going to talk briefly about Unlabeled. Unlabeled is a very values-driven proposition. And together with the teams in marketing and merchandising and e-com, and indeed the LGBTQ plus ERG, we recognized that there was a problem. And the problem was that the Generation Z, which is one of our target segments, they're shopping in a much more genderless way than they have in the past, as actually the LGBTQ community had been doing for a while. But our business is kind of gendered, right? If you go onto our website, you shop men versus women. If you look at a lot of our imagery, especially historical imagery that people tend to think of, it's very gendered. So the question becomes, how do we go about changing that? And so we work together to form a very consumer-centric journey, starting from awareness all the way through to the purchase experience on the website and the products that we've actually curated in order to deliver something that's right for these consumers. That's the first time that we've done something in that kind of a targeted way. And by the way, this will launch on Sunday. It's not even in the market yet, so it's a very, very, very recent example. There's another side to this as well, which is the values piece. This is not just about commercialization. This is about helping advocate for LGBTQ plus inclusion on a normalized basis through our main commercial channels, but then also providing career development opportunities for our people within Unlabeled. So a very important values play that's generated a lot of momentum within the organization because of that. Lastly, there's the Holy Grail, which is getting involved at the formulating the questions point of the process. And we're there, just 10 months into this team's existence, and we're already there. Unfortunately, I can't share these concepts with you because they're far too confidential, but they are consumer facing, they're very exciting, and will probably be in an MVP in the first few months of next year. But that leads me to the final tip, which is go fast. If you don't go fast, you'll lose your partners. They'll lose interest and you'll lose credibility. So make sure that you move really quickly. So beyond the 5 tips, what are the truths that can help you unlock some of this if you're trying to undergo a similar journey at your company? So the first is to recognize that it's people, not just technology or capabilities. Those are important, those are totally necessary, but they're not sufficient. You need to focus on the people. The second is that you need to understand and integrate yourself into your company's ways of working. The goal might be complete innovation and transformation, but the way to start is to understand what the current ways of working are, where you can interface with those ways of working in order to develop traction. And then finally, if you align yourself with your company's values, and hopefully you work there because you believe in those values, but if you align yourself with your company's values, you'll be in a position to generate much more traction much more quickly than you otherwise would. I hope this has been helpful and exciting for you. Thank you very much.
Some very valuable
I wonder if it's Sonia or myself who have a connection problem.
And we are experiencing a connection problem with Sonia camera, and she will be back.
hello. Sorry about that, but a technical problems there. It's my great pleasure to introduce now Jarko Havas. Jarko is lead of data and metrics at the environmental charity, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. Jarko, you have developed a tool allowing companies to measure their impact on the environment, and more specifically, to measure their circular economy. Can you define for us the circular economy, Jarko?
Yes, thanks, Sonia. So circular economy is this concept that is based on the concept where, an economy where disposability has been normalized, where we today live pretty much. It cannot last forever. We have limited resources on the planet. If we use them up, there are no more. We have what we have, and therefore the concept is quite simple in its core. We need to make sure that we recirculate all those materials in our economy indefinitely, because we can't get any more than what we have. And where possible, move to renewable and regeneratively sourced to make sure that we take care of the nature that provides us with materials that are renewable as much as possible where it makes sense, to make sure that we can keep on living on this planet with material sets that are available to us.
Why should companies be worried about this?
There are many reasons. I think the most pressing ones are for industries where material costs have already gone up because of the scarcity of these materials. We're more and more relying, for example, on batteries when we move to electric cars, let's say. And many of those rare earth materials that are needed for batteries are already scarce. And that's one reason why it's very tangible for many companies in that industry. We need to move to an economy where we recirculate those materials. And in many other industries, it just makes economic sense as well. It's good for the bottom line. Material costs can go down when you have to put less money into extracting them, when you already have those materials in the economy and you can reuse them and recycle materials to lower your material costs. And of course, many other benefits that go from societal to environmental positive impacts.
Right, so it's not just a sort of a benefit for the environment, it can also be a benefit for companies' bottom line.
Yes, absolutely. And I think where our foundation sort of started was with the idea that we need to figure out what it actually means. What's the economic benefit in a circular economy? And one of our early reports states that it is in its trillions of euros in Europe alone, these economic benefits. More on the top line side of things there, but the ability to move to a circular economy will bring benefits. And I think on a company level, early movers will of course benefit from it more. And in our network, we have some of the biggest companies in the world, and they really see the benefit of moving to a circular economy. And
Right.
companies like Danone and Google and DS Smith, for example, are some of these companies in our network.
Now you have a video that will show us in a nice format. It will help us understand what the circular economy is, right?
Yes, and then specifically how to measure it and what the tool that we are going to talk about a little bit more, Circulytics, has.
Great. Let's see the video.
Great.
Imagine if businesses could create strategies for both better profits and a better future. Today, we take materials out of the ground, use them to make products, and then throw those products away. It's what we call the linear economy. But around the world, companies are shifting away from this wasteful and polluting approach and seeing the potential of the circular economy. It's an economy where we design products to never become waste, where we keep materials in use, and where we restore and protect our natural world. Businesses are recognising how circular economy strategies can create long-term success, open up new areas for growth, and contribute to thriving communities, and how the circular economy can help them tackle some of the world's most pressing challenges, like climate change, wildlife loss, pollution. However, to make the right strategic decisions, companies need the right data. Circulytics, a tool for measuring the circularity of any business, uses the widest set of circular economy indicators available today. It scores companies on areas such as strategy, innovation, and material flows, and provides world-leading analysis and insights from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. Circulytics gives companies the most comprehensive picture of their circular economy performance, opportunities for innovation, and the ability to measure progress.
Jaka, can you explain to us a little bit about your tool, Circulytics, how it works, what metrics it measures, and how companies can use it?
Yes, so it was by popular demand, in a way, from our network of companies that they needed a tool to reliably and holistically measure and track their progress in going from a linear way of doing business to a more circular way of doing business. And it measures then this journey, really, and it has two main components to it. The first one is what we call the enablers, forward-looking qualitative indicators on whether circular economy is part of your strategy, whether you've invested in innovation in that space, whether you've brought your employees with you in that journey, as an example, to make sure that you've covered all the bases that as a company you need to cover to make sure that you can transition from one way of doing business to another one, and in this case to a more circular way of doing business. And the other category then is about outcomes. So real world sort of tangible results that you've put in place in terms of what your material flows look like, or the materials that you input to your processes from, for example, non-virgin sources. So you're not digging up stuff from the ground, but you're using what we already have in the economy. And the products that you produce, are they suitable to be reused many times before they are put back upstream in recycled material? And for companies who do services, are your services designed to support this circular economy? And then some other considerations for example, water intensive industries, how your water flows look like. So these two components, forward looking, how likely are you to become more circular in the future because of your enabling environment, and how circular are you today in our outcome indicators?
Can you give an example of a company that has used Circulytics and what benefits it achieved from it?
Yeah, so I guess for our audience today, a couple of companies come to mind. One is DS Smith, pet packaging mostly company, who've used it. And what we've heard from DS Smith is that they found some blind spots in their strategy. They've just released a new environmental sustainability strategy, but what they mentioned to us is that they hadn't thought about employees as much as they probably should have. And Circulytics was, in a way, an eye-opener on that front. Another example would be Brambles, who make, amongst other things, creates pallets for transportation. And they have taken Circulytics to inform their internal KPIs by, for example, measuring how many reuses they get from each pallet, and to try and maximize that to take as much value from one pallet as possible. And in that sense, also promote circular economy in the transportation industry.
Do you give companies some kind of a score, some kind of way that they can rate themselves with this tool?
That's right. So Circulytics indeed gives an overall score, which is a letter from A to E. That is a very good sort of conversation starter. Of course, there's many things that go into that one letter, but we like it because it is an easy way to get into the conversation on why did we get a B or why did we get a C, and then it breaks down into multiple sort of layers. So you have a score per category, and then along these different themes. So we have 11 themes under the two categories, enablers and outcomes, to better describe in detail what your circularity and your journey to a more circular way of doing business is like. And that's more actionable. You can start to look at what should you do next as an organization to move on that journey and benefit from being an early mover still in many industries towards a circular economy.
So presumably everybody's trying to get an A. Is it something that you would recommend companies, perhaps do on a yearly basis, or would they have to do it? Is it something you have to check in every day?
Well, of course, some companies move very fast, but what we think is a sensible way of doing this is to do an assessment on a yearly basis, to look at how you're tracking and how the activities that you put in place once you have your baseline score, how does that affect your score next year? And that has been indeed something that many companies are very interested in. Of course, we are now in our first year of operations, so next year we hope to see many companies do the assessment again and see how they're evolving, and in that way have the ability to track and to change the way that they're doing things to make it even better.
And do companies often are they often surprised at what they find? Can you give an example of perhaps small things that surprise companies when they start to actually measure their processes in this way?
I think that really depends on how much the company and the individuals who do this assessment in a company have thought about circular economy in their own context. For some, it's really about, this is what it actually means. This is what the circular material flow should look like. All the way to, for example, the DS Smith example, where it's a detail. They have thought about circular economy a lot and changed their processes already, but the people aspect, for example, was new. So in this way, it really is a unique sort of findings for per company many times, but I think an overarching theme is just to the ability to, through this tool, to look at your material flows in a way that tells you about how circular you are today. That has been really, I think, the main overarching theme, the ability to look at your material flows in a circular way.
Because you have to measure these things, right? Before you can actually change, you need to have some kind of measurement, some sort of clarity on where you are before you can enact change.
That's right. I think creating a baseline at first, to know where you are today, to have a goal where you're going in the future, a circular economy related strategy, and then this tool to allow you to track your progress between where you are today and a future ideal state where you want to be. And that's really, you can't do it in any other way than having metrics in place and track your progress. And
do you hope that at some stage you'll have rankings for, say, different industries, rankings for companies within different sectors, so that companies can actually compare themselves, or perhaps, get more stakeholder value by having a higher rating? It's something they can perhaps tell their clients.
Yeah. So what we've done now is that it's up to the company itself to decide whether they want to disclose their own score. So we don't force disclosure, because it's a new topic for many companies. We want first to get many companies to do the assessment and see where they're at without sort of disclosure pressure. What we do provide is an anonymous average score by industry to show how you're doing against aggregated group of peers in your industry, to see sort of where you're at with other companies who've done the assessment. And this is the type of data that we'll be publishing on a yearly basis. And then as a part of the scorecard as well, as a benchmark for these different themed scores.
Well, Jarkko, that's great to hear, and really I wish you the best of luck with that tool. How long did it take you to develop that?
Well, it's an ongoing process, of course, but we moved in 2019 quite fast with a group of 13 companies from different industries to develop the first version that we launched early this year, and are now launching a version 2, 28th of October in this month, an improved version. And in this way, we try to do an annual sort of improvement and iteration on the tool, while changing it in a way where it allows still tracking year on year, but to make sure that it stays relevant and a cutting edge sort of tool in the space of circular economy. But we moved quickly at first, but it's a continuous process.
It's a continuous progress, fine tuning. Jarkko, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. Really interesting project. Great to hear from you.
Thank you, Sonia. It was my pleasure.
He has got some great actionable tips in this presentation on how to make a really eye-catching online ad. We're at a time now where social media advertising is where it's at. Chris's speciality is Facebook. So without further ado, it's my great pleasure to turn us over to Chris.
Hey everyone, and thank you for the warm words. And yes, I just listened to Jarkko's presentation and absolutely loved it. So really, like what I also like him, we really tried to leave the world a better place as where we came from, and like really. So what I'll share you is very powerful. So please use it for good. Okay, like the knowledge that you will get, please use it for good purposes. Because when I started, I would have loved if someone was teaching me those things and I didn't have to A/B test everything, because of course to get there we had to run over 3,500 A/B tests of variations of the different ads. So yeah, everyone, I'm Chris. I'm from Munich, but moved 7 years ago to Barcelona because I really love the city and want to live here, and so I started my own company here, Meller, which you can see here. And in my presentation, I will talk about the creatives, the 10 formulas that can really help you to also make good creatives, because people always say like Facebook ads don't work. No, like if you have the right creatives, they absolutely work. And I will show you like also how we can use those ads for like good purposes, like the World Food Program, which actually just 3 hours was announced that they won the global World Nobel Peace Prize. So like I'll show you one of the ads that we made for them. So yeah, very happy to begin and to share with you all of those items. So here we go. So hopefully next year we can do it again in person, because I really love like talking to all of you in person and then having beers together afterwards. But yeah, let's jump in it now. So the first, what Sonia said, we started a company Meller, and I will show you the ads and the formulas we use for that, and also then I will share with you the last. So like in Meller, we invest in a couple of millions every year in Facebook ads. So we go a lot to the headquarters, and they give us also tips. And then two of my friends made a company that exploded even more than us, which we were already pretty happy. And so I also got involved in helping them. So I'm Hello Buddy. And actually, if all of you want to Google that later, Hello Buddy sold. So they just made an exit, and we achieved over 100 million revenue. So I'll also show you all of the ads that made this company go from 0 to 100 million in 4 years, which I think brings a lot of value to see what ads were working there. And I'll give you general formulas. But enough of overview. So Meller, we started 7 years ago, and it's going really well. Customers love us, and we love what we do. And we do sunglasses. Our sunglasses are very colorful, so that's why when we look for a name, we're like, okay, which animal? Like we have a very colorful palette of sunglasses. Which animal changes the color? It's the chameleon. So the biggest chameleon species in the world is called Meller, and that's why we called the company Meller. And without further ado, let's jump into one of the ads, and you'll see like action is always very important in the ad. So this ad makes us a lot of money, and it's just this girl looking at the different sunglasses, and then she decides to pick one of those, and
Okay, we seem to have lost Chris there momentarily.
Yeah, we are trying to bring Chris back. Just bear with us 1 minute.
right, here we go. Sorry, guys. It's one of the things that happens when you're live, of course. So here, well, let's do it next year in person. It's gonna be awesome. So here, I will share quickly about Hello Buddy. So like this one, we actually really were able to scale. And I will show you like the formulas according to those ads. So like we're doing creams for women, and the formulas that you have to follow is really like, I will give you different ad examples to show the formulas. Okay, so when you think of ads, really think of like, how can we get the attention of a person in the first second? Like really try to make a lot of variations of the first second. So I'll show you this one, for example. Let me just get my sound a bit less so you won't. Okay. You're right, you have this bold question and this person grabbing out, and then you have the heartbeat method, which goes on. Let's jump to the next ad. So you really always want to use, or nearly always want to use a frame around your ad. So for Black Friday, we really used a frame to get people's attention also more. And then we have this two women, clear skin in 15 minutes, question mark, showing the products. Everything goes very, very fast paced. Ad is 10 seconds. And they smile in the camera, and that you see the discount. Where we come to the next one. So discounts, if your company can give discounts, it really works, because obviously the person, when they see your product or whatever service you have, they are normally in a lazy mode when they go into Instagram and Facebook. So to grab them, they're like, okay, you have to do action now and not wait about it. Discounts is something that really, really help. So here we have this short ad, which is a basic attention grabber. So the Moore mask runs out here, and then you go to a discount. Okay, so these ads for Black Friday, they like nearly all of those ads had way more than $1 million of budget behind it. So you see simple ads, but they really performed very, very well. And another quick example is like, when you do ads, always follow pitch, play, plunge. That's something that Facebook always teaches us every time we go to headquarters, which means one ad is like 5 to 10 seconds, a pitch ad. One tells a story of the brand, so plunge, 45 seconds, and play is gamification. So here we used gamification. So we used the game of Tetris, like to make the ad a bit more funny for the customer, and then they win the discount. All right, and next. So the next very big thing is like, you really want to follow the heartbeat method, okay? Which means every 1.5 seconds or faster when the heart beats, you want to change your camera angle and the style of the ad. So let's see here. You see, change. You see the customers, we normally say like 1.2 million happy customers, change. Like this style is super important. So if you don't follow this, it's very hard for your ad to go well, because the attention span of people is short. Then I'll show you a couple of ads. So you see like all the ads that I'm involved in the creative process all have the same thing with a frame, a lot of testimonials. You're gonna see this now when I show you this one. Okay, so on this ad here, let's see if I can play it. Yeah. So what we see in this ad, again, we have a frame, of course, but also in the first second, you see how the camera of the video is going down, like a book is folding. So we tried this to get the click-through rate up, and it really worked for us. Okay, so just these small variations and tricks, showing the website behind. Now we're trying one where we show the price of a website also. Those things really perform. And also then have movement, show a product, have movement right away, and then you show like social proof, no? Like this is known from Business Punk and all of those magazines. And let's jump to the next ad. So this ad shows you three good practices at once, okay? So I will show you bold statements. So here, with Razor is Razorborn. Testimonials, which is so key, okay? So every company can claim that we are good, we're doing good. But if the customers say that, it's so much more powerful, okay? So you really want to use testimonials in your ads, on the websites, and on the checkout. So when people go and buy, then put the credit card when it hurts, you really want to have reviews and testimonials below that. It's so crucial. And subtitles, yeah? So let's play this one, which is like a very good example of 15 seconds ad. Screen of many. Baby is always good.
Heavy, beautiful razor. The best thing ever.
The customers talk good about it. We show all reviews. Testing on, and then you zoom out of the product again. So that's a very, very good formula to follow for a pitch ad. And really, some people go like, okay, but of our products, none of those things can work. We're just selling a hot sauce, for example. We want to do image ads. Don't, okay? Like be creative and try to make video ads, because In Europe, there are still some cases when image ads can work. In the US, you can nearly forget about it. So really, and that's also where our market is moving to. So really move to video ads and make cool videos. I'll show you one example of like, no excuses, do cool ads. All right. And now like to summarize those a little bit, I'll show you one ad which uses 5 of those features. So you don't have to always use all, but the more you use, the better your ad will be. Okay, so here they really do a good job in the first second. They use a plunge, so they really showcase the company. You will see how well they use the heartbeat method and the bold statement in the beginning. And they go like the style of problem, solution. Okay, so problem, sweatpants don't look cool, but very comfortable. Solution, we made amazing ones. So let me play this for you.
Problem with sweatpants. It's pretty simple. They're comfortable, but they suck. The fit sucks.
You see the heartbeat method?
They end up dragging on the ground and getting stained. Then before you know it, they're dirty, which totally
and they
sucks.
use a funny style.
But why? Was there some law passed to make sure all comfortable pants made you look vaguely homeless? Well, the guys at Public Rec put in hours of testing and scientific research to answer that question. And as it turns out, it doesn't. So they came up with one mission. Create sweats that feel good and look good. Meet the all-day, everyday pants.
So the ad goes longer, but I'm going to skip this because I still want to show you the ad of Share the Meal, which is from the World Food Program, which again, I saw like won the Global Peace Prize today. And I'll show you one of the ads here that is working very, very well.
1 in 7 children does not have enough food to lead a healthy and active life. But what does it take to end global hunger? It costs 80 cents to feed one hungry child for one full day. The Share the Meal app enables you to share your meal with children in need. All it takes is 80 cents and a tap on your smartphone, whenever you want, wherever you are. The United Nations World Food Program provides the meals. We show you where the children are and how we are progressing.
Okay, so I'm
now picture this. Smartphone users outnumber...
short time, I could talk about this for hours, of course. But yeah, so really with this, go out and make amazing, amazing video creatives, okay? Because it's just very simple formulas. Now really, you crush the first second. You try if you can, you use the discounts. You go for the heartbeat methods. You use pitch or gamification, right? So you use the top corner trick. You put a frame around it, like all of those things. Like I'm sure you can like reshare or rewatch this also to see it again. I just like, and yeah, I thank you a lot for your attention and hope to see you soon in person.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, Chris. There's some really great actionable tips there on how to make an online ad. Fascinating. Well, now it's time to draw the masterclass to a close. I'd like to thank very much our 3 phenomenal speakers. Very interesting points from across the business world, from advertising to environmental impact. Now it's time to turn over to Stefan, founder and CEO of Deliver, who has what you've all been waiting for, the awards ceremony. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sonia, for your fine moderation of this very insightful masterclass. Deliver 2020 is coming to an end, and it's about time to announce the winners of this year's awards. The nominees were our 65 partners, and the jury were our 600 invited retail decision makers. The Deliver Awards are unique because they are collaborative since our first edition. We indeed believe that there is no better recognition than the one coming from from customers themselves. So here are the 5 categories. The Game Changer Award rewards the vendor. The Sustainability Award rewards the vendor with the highest environmental achievements. The Customer Experience Award rewards the vendor contributing to contribute to the retailer's customer satisfaction. The Cool Vendor Award rewards the vendor with the most respected brand and inspiring services. And the Rising Star Award rewards the most promising startup vendor whose vision challenges the status quo. So let's start and let's see who the 600 invited retailers of this year have decided to vote for. Now, for the Game Changer category, the 2 runners-up are Shopper and Zigzag. And the Deliver 2020 Game Changer Award goes to ShipUp. The vendor receiving this award is believed to be a visionary company bringing groundbreaking innovations that will shape the future of the industry with a decisive impact on the acceptance of new technologies. Congratulations, ShipUp. For the sustainability category, the 2 runners-up are Pack and Pack Size, and the Deliver 2020 Sustainability Award goes to the PED Group. This award is dedicated to the company that is incorporating sustainability and circular economy at the core of its value proposition, and hence paving the way for a more inclusive corporate approach. Congratulations, DPD Group. For the customer experience category, the 2 runners-up are ShipUp and Zigzag. And the Deliver 2020 Customer Experience Award goes to DPD Group again. So this award singles out the vendor that allows its retailer customers to provide to their own end customers a remarkably superior experience through their partnerships. Congratulations one more time, DPD Group. And now the 4th category is the Cool Vendor category. The 2 runners-up are Paqueta and DPD Group. And the Deliver 2020 Cool Vendor Award goes to Geek Plus. This award is designed to highlight the vendor that is recognized for the reputation of its brand and whose credibility on the market allows it to position itself as a thought leader for the industry. Congratulations, Geek Plus. And for our final category, the Rising Star category, which is reserved to the startup, the 2 runners-up are Zen Cargo and Seven Sanders, and the Deliver 2020 Rising Star Award goes to Inbox. This award recognizes the young company that is expected to catch much attention in the future because of its innovative services that have the ability to solve important problems at a large scale. Congratulations, Instabox. On behalf of the 600 customers who took their role as an international and very selective jury, very selective, very seriously and who voted by the hundreds, I warmly congratulate our winners of the 2020 class. We had ShipUp, DPD Group, Geek Plus, and Insta. You just received the best recognition possible, the one from the users of your solutions. So now that we know who the award winners for 2020 are, the time has come to wrap up the 2020 edition of Deliver. Among all the subjects covered during the masterclasses and the interactive workshops, there was one that really gained a lot of prominence compared to past editions. That's sustainability. We can really feel that, sustainability, took, a big prominence, and that there is like a strong acceleration of projects in that direction. That is quite, I would say, different compared to our previous editions. And in fact, this gives me the opportunity to say that we at Deliver as well, we have always thought it was our responsibility to minimize our impact in the world. So this is why since our very first edition in 2016, we have always compensated 100% of our carbon emissions, making Deliver the first large-scale event in e-commerce and in logistics to be carbon neutral. So today, we are still spearheading that movement in the events industry, but our hope is that soon it will be so basic that it will not even be worth mentioning it. Time now to look at the future. Of course, depending on the progress made by science and how collectively we all manage to handle the pandemic, our next encounter will be in person again. I invite you all to join us at our 6th edition on the 8th and 9th of June 2021 in Amsterdam. That's only in 8 months. I am very delighted to see you there, all of you. It's going to be a pleasure to shaking hands, or at least see you again. Yeah. So what I want to say now to all of your great participants is that I really look forward to seeing you all again. And so see you next year, everybody. And in the meantime, of course, stay safe and keep the goods flowing. I wish you all a wonderful weekend and a wonderful year ahead. I wish you all to succeed in your peak and to manage successfully all the projects you have in store. Again, thank you very much. I would like to thank you, all the participants, for making that edition so special, for engaging with us. Of course, I want to give my personal, I want to express my personal gratitude to the entire Deliver team who worked very hard to make it happen, and that delivered on that edition so successfully. And again, that would be my utmost pleasure to see you all next year in Amsterdam on the 8th and 9th of June 2021. So see you next year, everybody.